have some more skull models. So the thing about this skull model here is it has the calvaria intact. Pretty much all the other ones have the calvaria cut off, so you can't see quite a few of the suture lines. So that's basically what this one is really good for. So here you have the coronal suture. Back here you're going to have the lambdoidal suture, and this here is the mid-sagittal suture. Where the mid-sagittal suture and the lambdoidal suture meet, that point is called lambda. Just keep that in mind. There are a few points that you guys need to know specifically on the skull models. On this one here, where the coronal suture meets with the squamosal suture, that's basically the pterion, and then where the squamosal suture meets with the lambdoidal suture, that's going to be the asterion. Now, on this model, you can actually see a few muscles that we need to talk about because you guys need to be familiar with this, especially when it comes to the final exam. So here you're going to have temporalis. In the back, you're going to have occipitalis, and this muscle here is going to be frontalis. The muscle right on the nose is going to be nasalis. This muscle here is levator labii superioris. This muscle here is levator palpebrae, and surrounding the eye is going to be orbicularis oculi. Surrounding the mouth is going to be a muscle called orbicularis oris. There is a muscle that comes to the corner of the mouth but actually runs lateral to the skull. This muscle is going to be risorius, and it's actually been cut off right there. Deep to risorius, you're going to see a muscle called the buccinator or buccinator. These muscles up here are going to be zygomaticus major and minor. This muscle here is masseter. This muscle is depressor labii inferioris, and this muscle is depressor anguli oris. And then right on the chin, you're going to have a muscle called mentalis. Now, mentalis is called that because on the mandible, you have a structure called mental foramen. So just remember, mental has to do with the actual mandible itself, or basically the chin if you want to think about it that way. The other things you guys need to know about these muscles is nerves that innervate them. So you guys will probably see like 1 or 2 nerve innervation questions on the final. You guys honestly should be familiar with the cranial nerves by now and what they innervate. So pretty much everything on the face is going to be the facial nerve, which is cranial nerve 7. There are 3 exceptions to this rule that we cover in anatomy lab. Those 3 exceptions are masseter, temporalis, and levator palpebrae. Now the masseter and the temporalis, these 2 muscles here, are innervated by cranial nerve 5, the trigeminal nerve. These are the muscles of mastication, so your chewing muscles. Levator palpebrae is an eye muscle, so it's going to be innervated by cranial nerve 3, the oculomotor nerve. Now, if you guys ever forget, honestly, these muscles are different colors, which kind of hints at the fact that these 2 muscles specifically are innervated by different nerves as opposed to these. Now this muscle here is going to be the digastric. So you have the anterior belly here and the posterior belly here. The posterior belly of the digastric attaches to the mastoid process, and the anterior belly basically attaches to the mental spine, which is a protrusion coming off of the back of the mandible. Deep to this muscle, you're going to have the mylohyoid, which is this right here. Now, let's talk about everything we can see on this model. Everything on this model is basically the same as the last one, except for the fact that we can see an additional muscle right here. This muscle is called the stylohyoid. You can see mentalis, depressor labii inferioris, depressor anguli oris, zygomaticus major, minor, all the facial muscles, all the fun stuff that we were talking about before. However, you can also see the parotid gland and the parotid duct coming right off of it, going deep into the buccinator or buccinator if you prefer that. Another thing unique to this model is going to be the arteries that you can see. So here you have the internal jugular vein. Just in front of it, you have the common carotid artery. The common carotid artery has 2 branches coming off of it, the external carotid and the internal carotid right there. This is the This is the superior thyroid artery. Just above it is the lingual artery. This is the facial artery. And coming off of the facial artery is the submental artery right there. Submental artery wraps around the chin to actually come and meet with the inferior alveolar artery at the mental foramen, and it becomes the mental artery right there. The facial artery continues up the side of the face to branch off into the superior and inferior labial arteries, and this artery right here called the angular artery. Now on this side, you can see the superficial temporal artery. It's called this because it's superficial to the temporal bone and the temporalis muscle as well. And then behind the ear, the auric, A-U-R-I-C, it's basically another word for the ear or the ear canal, is going to be the posterior auricular artery. So it's that one right there. And then in the occipital region of the skull, you have the occipital artery. So that should be pretty easy for you guys, and honestly, your guys will probably see, my guess would be 2 or 3 arteries from the face on the final exam. So keep that in mind.